Hey guys, so this is going to be your lecture notes for section 2 of Looking for Alaska. We are starting on page 12, 127 days before. So when the section opens, we're kind of introduced to more of how our characters all interact. And what you're going to see as the author continues to develop this novel is that he's going to have two worlds, one where all the adults go and one where all of the students go. And so the student domain is going to be the smoke hole and the areas around the lake, and in the dormitories where they kind of hide and they do their bucking authority things like smoking cigarettes and swearing and doing all that stuff that they do that they're not really like allowed to do. So the first kind of introduction that we get to the real conflict between the weekday warriors and the students who live at Culver Creek happens on page 13. And that's the section where Miles gets hazed by the weekday warriors. So I'm going to read you a little bit of that section here. It's on page 13. Okay. So I'm reading after the page break, fourth paragraph on page 13. Okay, so fourth paragraph after the page break on page 13. A decision I found myself regretting some hours later when I awoke to two sweaty, meaty hands shaking the holy hell out of me. I woke up completely and instantly, sitting up straight in bed, terrified, and I couldn't understand the voices for some reason. Couldn't understand why there were any voices at all. And what the hell time was it anyway? And finally my head cleared enough to hear, "Come on, kid, don't make us kick your ass. Just get up." And then from the top bunk I heard, "Christ, Pudge, just get up." So I got up and saw for the first time three shadowy figures. Two of them grabbed me, one with a hand on each of my upper arms, and walked me out of the room. On the way out, the colonel mumbled, "Have a good time. Go easy on him, Kevin." So what we have here is kind of a hazing ritual that takes place for the new kids, of which Miles is one. You might not know this, but hazing rituals are really, really common in places like boarding schools and universities. So they're less common now than they used to be, and definitely less extreme now than they used to be. There was a famous case, not too long ago, February 2017, where a young man died as a result of a hazing ritual, and some laws were passed as a result. So this is the guy that died. Basically what happened to him was his fraternity brothers got him so drunk that he fell down the stairs and sustained a head injury, and as a result of the alcohol and head injury, he just didn't wake up. So that's a famous example of hazing. There are a lot more varieties of hazing, and it takes place in both sororities and fraternities. Most of the time they involve alcohol. The boys tend a little bit more towards violence than the girls do. But it takes place as part of like an induction into a fraternity. So let's see here. Okay, so after Miles gets carried out, he gets thrown into the lake. And what's different about this is that normally the people who get hazed just get thrown into the lake, but Miles is wrapped in duct tape, a duct tape cocoon, and he has to struggle to get out. So a lot of you guys might think, hey, it's unrealistic that something this dangerous would be done to a person during a hazing ritual, but it's not. Dangerous things like these happen all the time during hazing rituals. So Miles eventually makes it out of the lake. He survives. He does not die. And then he goes back and he ends up with Alaska in her room because he doesn't want to go back to the colonel to his own room in case the guys are back there waiting for him to throw him back in, because of the colonel's reaction. And Alaska is not very nice to him when he appears in her room. She basically just tells him to grow up and other people have much bigger problems. But we find out later that neither Alaska nor the colonel knew that Miles was going to be taped before he was thrown into the lake. On page 14, we find out that ratting, snitching, is one of the things that is absolutely frowned upon at Culver Creek among the students. And this is to do what I talked about earlier, where we have to keep the adult world and the student world separate. Okay, so the students, they don't rat because they don't want to invite the adults to interfere in their world and introduced in their problems. Okay, so and the colonel says, maybe I should, or Miles says, well, maybe I should just go to the Eagle tomorrow and tell him. Absolutely not, the colonel answered. He walked over to his crumpled shorts lying on the floor and pulled out a pack of cigarettes. He lit two and handed one to me. I smoked the whole damn thing. You're not, he continued, because that's not how we deal with things here. And besides, you really don't want to get a reputation for ratting, but we will deal with those bastards, Pudge. I promise you. They will regret messing with one of my friends. Okay, so again, we see the absolutely no snitching allowed kind of ethos happening here. And then in the next chapter, so I'll be reading on a little bit on page 15, we meet one of the most important characters in the entire story. He doesn't seem like it yet, but he's going to just grow in importance as the story continues on. His name is Dr. Hyde, and he is a religion teacher. Okay. And so I'm going to read here. It's at the bottom of page 15, second paragraph up from the bottom. My name, he said, is Dr. Hyde. I have a first name, of course. So far as you are concerned, it is Doctor. Your parents pay a great deal of money so that you can attend school here, and I expect that you will offer them some return on their investment by reading what I tell you to read, when I tell you to read it, and consistently attending this class. And when you are here, you will listen to what I say. Clearly, not an easy A. This year, we'll be studying 3 religious traditions: Islam, Christianity, and Buddhism. We'll tackle 3 more traditions next year, and in my classes, I will talk most of the time, and you will listen most of the time, because you may be smart, but I've been smart longer. Okay, so the professor goes on to talk about what they're going to be studying here, and he ends up with saying, we're going to be looking for some of these questions. The search for meaning. What is the nature of being a person? What is the best way to go about being a person? How did we come to be, and what will become of us when we are no longer? In short, what are the rules of this game, and how might we best play it? So John Green ties in the Great Perhaps and the Labyrinth with Dr. Hyde. So the search for human meaning, that's a theme throughout this entire book that you should be looking for. Okay. And the last thing that I want to talk about with you guys is on page 17. And basically, it's a peek inside of the colonel's relationship with his girlfriend. And the colonel is a boarder at the school, and that means that he is poor. And Sarah, his girlfriend, is a weekday warrior, which means that she is rich. And so there's kind of this toxic relationship that's going on between these two. And it's because of the class differences between them. It's because one has money and the other doesn't. And that's what John Green is trying to show us here. And so they get into this major fight because the colonel can't iron his shirt because he doesn't know how to iron, probably because he's poor and never had to iron anything before. And, Sarah gets upset because they're going to the opera and the parents have to see him. So if you get, I don't imagine very many of you have ever been to the opera before, but you should know that opera houses tend to be these like very ornate, beautifully decorated, gilded in gold theaters, these like old world style theaters, and they're built in a way to have the sound reverberate in the room naturally, because most of the time they don't mic opera singers because they sing so loud anyhow. But yeah, so what we know about the Colonel so far probably makes it pretty clear that he would be out of place in an opera house. So they have this big fight because he's trying to be somebody that he's not. And, you know, we get a clue that their relationship is toxic at the bottom of page 17. Back in the room, he sat down with his ambrosia and told me, "She says I ratted out Paul and Maria. That's what the warriors are saying, that I ratted them out. Me, that's why they piss in my shoes. And that's why the nearly killing you, because you live with me and they say I'm a rat." I tried to remember who Paul and Maria were. The names were familiar, but I had heard so many names in the last week, and I couldn't match Paul and Maria with faces. And then I remembered why. I'd never seen them. They got kicked out the year before, having committed the trifecta. "How long have you been dating her?" I asked. 9 months. We never got along. I mean, I didn't even briefly like her, like my mom and my dad. My dad would get pissed, and then he would beat the shit out of my mom, and then my dad would be all nice, and they'd have like a honeymoon period. But with Sarah, there's never a honeymoon period. God, how could she think I was a rat? I know. Why don't we break up?" He ran a hand through his hair, clutching a fistful of it atop his head, and said, "I guess I stay with her because she stays with me, and that's not an easy thing to do. I'm a bad boyfriend, and she's a bad girlfriend. We deserve each other." So this goes along with another thing that you're going to see a lot in this book, right? So Tom Green, or John Green, not Tom Green. Tom Green's a comedian. John Green's an author. So John Green here is trying to deal with some big questions like, do we have free will? Is there fate? Things like that. And so you're going to see the Colonel over and over again talk about how crappy his life is, but it's his and he chooses it. And him making the choice to live the life that he lives and make the decisions that he makes is what kind of gives him the power to cope through how bad his life is. And you're going to see Miles make different choices about how to cope with his life, and you're going to see Alaska make even more different choices. So the Colonel says somewhere in the book that the labyrinth is crap, but I choose it. And then you're going to see Alaska make statements like, "You guys smoke because you enjoy it. I smoke to die," right? So you're going to see those kind of things emerge throughout the book as the book goes on. So just think about what he's trying to show you about how the characters solve problems as you continue to read. So let me know in the comments in Classroom if you guys are enjoying this book so far. I hope you are. So next assignment will be up on Friday sometime before 8 a.m. and will be due Sunday night by midnight. So just keep a lookout, and I hope you guys are safe, and I hope you're having fun, and take care.